Welcome to the Irresistible You podcast. This is the place to get a dose of empowerment to create the life you crave and deserve. I'm your host, Amy Beltran, and I am the CEO and founder of Irresistible University. Through my signature online coaching program, I teach women just like you how to ditch the body image issues, gain confidence, and lose the emotional weight to look and feel irresistible at any size. If you like the podcast, then you're going to love my group coaching program. If you would like to learn more about the program, including the cost, what's included, see client testimonials, and to sign up and get enrolled, please head over to irresistibleicing.com/course. The link is also in the show notes. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the podcast. I wanted to first start off and just give my thanks and gratitude for each and every one of you that took the time to reach out to me, whether it was in a comment, whether it was in a DM, an email, what have you. Just anyone that had reached out over the last week as a result of last week's episode and me sharing kind of what we've been going through as a family and what we're dealing with since getting Catalina's type 1 diabetes diagnosis. All of your kind words and just stories of hope, it just means so much to us as we get through this time and we learn to adapt to what is now our new normal. And so that being said, it made me think about how I wanted to talk on the podcast today about circumstances because one of the things we talked about last week, and we talk about it quite often, honestly, is how the one thing that we know for sure in life is that at some point, more than one time usually, life is going to throw us a curveball here and there. And it's the one thing that we can count on. And I will say that when you are struggling with your weight and struggling to love yourself because you don't feel worthy because of your size, because of your weight in your body, there's this belief that you keep fueling. It's like, well, when everything dies down and the dust settles and things get better and life slows down and school's over and the job the project at work is over, well, then I'm going to start working on myself and then I'm going to start trying to lose the weight again. And, then there's also using all the excuses of like, well, if things wouldn't have got so crazy at work, if this wouldn't have happened, if that wouldn't have happened, I'd already be where I wanted to be. And for some of you, you're hanging on to stuff that's happened years ago and acting like a victim in the sense of like, well, if these things never happened, I would have the life that I want. And so that's why I think we have to keep talking about this, and we need to talk about circumstances and how, every single one of us has a story. Every single one of us has some kind of struggles that we're going through. Every single one of us has, our own cross to bear. And, you see people that go through absolutely traumatic, horrific things that you can't even imagine, right? And you see some people that go through these things and they have just the best outlook on things. And the thing about it is, when we talk about circumstances in life, the circumstance just is, right? Is circumstance, if you actually look at the true definition of a circumstance, it's a fact or a condition that's connected with a relevant event or action, meaning you can't change it. You cannot change the circumstance. So when you spend your time in the place of, well, if I wouldn't have got laid off, then I could have lost all my weight. Well, if this hadn't happened to me, if I wouldn't have broken my leg, I would have been like, we can't change the circumstance. It just is what it is. It's neither good or bad. It's just the circumstance. It's the facts of the situation. But what we get to do, which so many of us don't actually realize, and I was one of those people for many years who thought, well, if something happens to me and it's like, I'm just gonna I can't see any other way to think about it. When the truth of it is, we get to decide how we think and feel about that circumstance and how we move forward. And so I want to talk about that because it's something I deeply believe in. It's something that I've changed so much in my life over the last couple of years with my Irresistible You journey. And like I said, back in the day, I mean, if I would have had kids 20 years ago in my 20s, and this would have happened in my 20s, I think that I would have a completely different outlook on how I'm handling things. And it makes all the difference in the world when we can't change the things that have happened. So it's like, where I am right now, it's like I can't take type 1 diabetes away from my daughter no matter what. I can't plead with God. I can't bargain. I can't do any of those things. And there, at this point in time in our world, there's no cure. I can't take it away from her. But what I can do is be supportive and educated and advocate for her and fight for her and guide her and empower her. I can do that, right? So, I think it's so easy to blame our circumstances on why we don't have the life that we want, or why we're not living the life we crave, or why we're not the size we want to be or the weight we want to weigh. And especially that, it's like you sometimes will look at someone who is, I'm gonna use air quotes, right? A skinny woman or a skinny person, and you think, well, their life must be perfect. She must, like, everything good happens to her, because there's some connection along the way that as long as you're skinny, as long as you're thin, then that means life is perfect. It's why you tell yourself, well, when everything gets, calms down and everything is kind of aligned and my life kind of settles down, well, then I can start working on myself and lose my weight. And please explain to me when that's ever worked in your life, because life does not go perfectly every single day, and it's not meant to, and it's not supposed to. So you've got to stop trying to live your life in this bullshit bubble of perfection, because it doesn't exist. If you can't learn how to manage your emotions, if you can't learn how to lose weight and eat in a way that's healthy and, in the bad times, you're never going to be successful, because life is going to have good, bad, and in between. And so it's like you have to learn how to navigate through all of these different waves that are going to come at you. Of course, it's why I cannot stand, I don't even know if the show is still on, but I always hated the show, The Biggest Loser. I can't stand that show because, of course, people can lose hundreds of pounds in a controlled environment. They're away from their jobs, they're away from their families, they're away from their life, they're away from their home. They're like disconnected from the world, and they're living literally in a weight loss bubble with personal chefs and personal trainers. And it's like anybody could lose weight in that environment. So it's like when I would see people feel inspired by that show, and I'm thinking, well, that's not really it, boo, because that's not how any of us live our life. And then we see the Biggest Loser people, they go back into reality, and guess what happens? They gain their weight back. Because we cannot live in this bubble of like, everything that happens to me is going to be perfect and amazing, and if that's not happening, then I can't do this. When the reality is, we have to learn how to take better care of ourselves in terms of what we're eating, how we're speaking to ourselves, how we're thinking about ourselves, how we show up and wake up every single morning. We have to learn how to do that regardless of the circumstance that's happening right now, because it will always be something. And we saw it last year where everybody and their mama was using COVID as their excuse. And I said it before and I'll say it again. If it wouldn't have been COVID in March when everything shut down, y'all would have been using the time change, because it was right before daylight savings time. You would have been using that as your excuse because I saw it in the memories from a year ago. Okay? So it's like, it's always going to be something. And this really hit me the other day and like reinforced it for me, right? So Facebook was like, hey, you want to look at your memories? And I'm like, no, not really, because sometimes that's depressing. And anyway, I started looking at memories from that day. And then as I was scrolling down, which I can't believe we've all been on Facebook for like over 10 years, that is insane. And I saw, so, okay, let me back up for a second. I've been struggling lately, right? I've been struggling in terms of keeping up with life. Getting this diagnosis just a month ago. My life is already pretty busy as it is. We have oh my gosh, Javi is now 9 months old. We both work. I have my business. I have Catalina. We have Chewy. We try to have some fun in between there as well when we can. And then we throw type 1 diabetes that I knew nothing about. We throw that on top of the mix. And to be very honest with you, I'm currently drowning. I feel like I am drowning in life. Um, it's all consuming right now. It's starting to get better. The more educated I become on diabetes and all the different components that go into managing this, the dust is settling a little bit. But the truth of diabetes, type 1 especially, is that it never goes away. And it's not like if you keep eating this and you keep taking the insulin and you keep working on, doing X, Y, and Z, then you're going to like level out and you're going to be okay. Where I think about a type 2 person, which is why I hate the fact that these things are even both called diabetes. When you have type 2, as long as, you follow your meal plan, you exercise, you take your medication, and hopefully by doing that and those lifestyle changes, you actually, you know, kind of see the light at the end, so to speak. Not saying that's always the case, but what I'm trying to say is comparing the two things, type 1 diabetes is a constant presence. I mean, just last night, I was up in the middle of the night because Kat started dropping. She started dropping down below 60, and that's not good. So it's like it's just a constant. It's just there. It's constant, and so trying to balance my life as it is, and then adding this on top. And there's so many components to it, right? It's like learning how to do the insulin, learning how to count for carbs, learning how, like, it's just so many layers, and that's just the actions. And then if you bring in the emotional component, it's so heavy and it's so just thick, and there's so many different emotions that go into it. And when you have a child that becomes diabetic, it's not just the child that has it. I mean, yes, medically, yes, but it's like the whole family unit as a whole, every single one of us, it impacts us, all of us. And it's like, it's just a lot. And so lately, as we've both have gone back to work and we're getting back into our schedules and our routines and school and all the things, I have just been feeling super overwhelmed. And I feel like I just kept saying the words, like, I feel like I'm drowning in life because the things that I want to do for me personally have completely gone on the back burner, completely. That's not one of my core values. I always believe in self-care. I always believe in taking care of yourself, putting yourself first. Even when you're a parent, you have to take care of yourself. And as of lately, I've just had to do the bare minimum to get by because I'm in survival mode. And that's okay. That's okay. And I'm going to talk about that too, how certain times, certain things that are happening, you know, that's okay, right? And it just kind of had me down and out a little bit, and dealing with my own emotions around it, and the fact that I turned 40 on the 30th of July, and I'm not ready. I'm not ready, guys. I had all these plans of kind of what I was going to do to celebrate, to get myself ready, to just feel really good in my skin, like, and it didn't happen. Like, I haven't even had time to do anything for myself. I'm lucky if I get dressed and take a shower. Honestly, that's kind of how the last couple weeks have gone. Like I said, not every day is like that, but I feel like I'm finally starting to get some sense of Amy again, and that feels really good. And I feel like I'm finding my sparkle again, and it's coming back. But it's going to be a long journey. So the reason I'm sharing all of that was very long-winded, is to say that, I kept just kind of being down in my feelings about how I'm drowning, I'm overwhelmed, this is too much, how am I going to do this? It's just too much, blah, blah, blah. And when I saw that Facebook memory pop up, and as I'm scrolling backwards to 2010, what in the world? I had some dramatic, because I was looking to, like, my old posts were so dramatic and pity party and victim. Like, it is so, like, cringy to go back and see it. But one of the things I put was how I think it said something like, I feel like I only have one nostril above water. I can't keep up. I'm so overwhelmed. I feel like I'm drowning. And I'm like, okay, drama queen, there you are. Hello. So 2010 Amy was drowning and overwhelmed. And now we see 2021 Amy, and I have the exact same feelings, but for different circumstances, right? So my point in sharing that is like, there will always be some kind of circumstance. How are you going to handle it, and how are you going to choose to think about it going forward? And in 2010, I had no kids. Chewy was a puppy. I was in the when I had posted this, I think it was like around October, so it was right before the wedding. I was planning my wedding. I was working full time. I was finishing up my degree for college, and so it's like, you know, 39. I'm gonna keep saying 39 as long as possible, guys. I will not say 40 until on the 30th. Okay, but 39-year-old Amy is like, bitch, like, what do you have to be stressed about? Like, you had no kids, you have a puppy, a job, and a wedding. But that's not the point. Stress can come from happy events. Stress can come from traumatic events. So whether you're planning a wedding and being stressed over the wedding is very valid, or whether you're stressed because you have a newborn who's not sleeping, or you're stressed because you can't find a job. All of those things are circumstances, and all of those things can feel like stress, and stress hits the body the same way regardless of the situation. So I want you to think about that in terms of your own life, how if you've always been telling yourself the same stuff, it's just the circumstances keep changing. Then it's not the circumstance, it's you. Girl, it is you. It's not the circumstance. Because if I can feel like I'm drowning and overwhelmed from planning a fucking wedding, and I still feel like I'm drowning and overwhelmed because I'm running a business, taking care of a 9-month-old, taking care of a 4-year-old that now has diabetes, taking care of Chewy, trying to have a life with my husband, well, it's not the circumstance. It's how you are choosing to react to certain things. And I'm not saying that negates the fact that it's stressful and it's overwhelming. It is. But we get to decide how we're going to move forward around that. Because if I sat around here, and let me say this, and I tell all my students this, they all know, you are allowed to have a pity party for yourself. But believe me when I say this, your pity party is not open-ended. That pity party needs a start time and an end time, period. And when you get the news about something that's not pleasant, you're allowed to have that time. But the danger becomes when you stay at the pity party and you're not shutting it down. I could sit here and continuously have a pity party about why did this happen, why her, she's too young, it's taking away her innocence, she's going to have to overcome obstacles way before I thought she was going to, she's going to have to understand carbs and food when that was one thing I wanted to like protect her from, right? It's like I could sit here and just have those conversations with myself all day long and cry and be upset and be mad. And let me tell you, I do cry. I do cry. I dropped her off at school yesterday, and it's the first time she now has a CGM, which is a continuous glucose monitor. It's like this little gadget, looks like a button or something, and it goes, I have it up on her upper leg. You can put it on, it goes on the body, and it continuously reads her blood glucose, which means we don't have to prick her finger, 5 to 6 plus times a day. And it also means that we constantly know where she is because, blood sugar can rise and fall very rapidly. So this thing is just amazing. I can't even imagine, like, years ago, these kind of technologies didn't exist, but I had to drop off the receiver with her teacher because we don't have it connected to she has to get, I'm going into too much detail. She has to get a phone in order for it to give me the real-time readings when I'm at home, and we're working on that right now. So anyway, I had to give the little receiver to her teacher. And I don't know why I walked out of school and I just burst into tears as I was walking back to my car because it just was like, I don't have, sorry guys, it's like I'm kind of grieving the freedom, the carefreeness of just dropping my kid off at school and not worrying about their health. I always worry about her when she's out of my care, but now I worry about her health in a very big way, and that I'm having to turn it over to someone else when I'm not when I'm not there. And I called my mom and I just had to cry a little bit, and that's okay. But I don't sit in that pity party all day long, right? Because I don't like pity anyway, and I don't want anyone to pity me. I don't want anyone to pity her. I don't want pity from anyone. But sometimes we got to just feel what we feel instead of shoving it down and acting like it's not happening. Um, and so it's not helpful for me or for you to sit there and question things that have happened that we have no control over. I have no control over the fact that she got diabetes. There is nothing that I could have done to prevent that. Right? So think about in your own life, whatever challenge you're going through right now, whatever circumstance you're in, there's nothing that you could have done to change that. It just happened. And so we have to start adapting, and we have to that's the only way you're going to move forward. It's the only way you're going to move forward. And so it's like I tell my daughter this all the time. I tell her this all the time because just last night, like, she's been kicking ass, but then last night, out of nowhere, as we're starting to go to bed, she's like, "Mommy, I don't want diabetes anymore." And she asks me, "Am I going to have?" Because we were talking about, she's always talking about she wants to be a baby doctor when she grows up. That's what she calls it. And she's like, "When I'm a grown up, though, am I still going to have diabetes?" And I said, "Yes. This is something." And I'm very, honest with her. And I said, "Yes, this is something that you're going to have the rest of your life." I'm not going to sugarcoat that or hide that fact from her. She needs to know that. And I said, "This is just something you're always going to have, and you're already a rock star, and you're just rocking it out, and you're going to do amazing things with it." And when she hears that it's forever like that, she kind of had a moment, and she got upset, and then she's like, "I don't want diabetes anymore. It's yucky. I don't like this." And she just kind of got in her feelings like that. And I don't even know where I was going with that, guys. I'm kind of like all over the place. But what I tell her, and I always tell her this, there's two ways we get to look at this. You have diabetes. It just is. It just happened. And she'll ask me, "Why did it happen?" I said, "It just does. There's no rhyme or reason to it." I said, "It's the same reason why some people have black hair, some people have blonde hair, some people have white skin, some people have brown skin. It just is. We don't get a say or a choice. None of us got a say or a choice how we were born." Right? And so things like with type 1 diabetes, we don't get a say in that. It just happens. But I tell her, it's happened. And we have two ways to look at it. Number one, we get to be upset and sad and mad and fight it and just constantly, make it hard on ourselves. Or we get to make the best of it. And so, like, we were looking on Etsy, they have all these like stickers and fun things for your CGMs and your insulin pumps, like all these fun little stickers and things that you can buy and I said, this is how we make it fun, on her level. It's like, we have diabetes, we can't change that, but if we're going to have diabetes, we're going to at least rock the shit out of it, and we're going to make it fun. And we're going to put all the glitter and flowers and shit and unicorns all over the things and make these ugly medical devices, like, we're going to make them our bitch, okay? I don't tell her this. I'm telling y'all this. But that's my attitude about life. It's like, I can't change it. Obviously as a parent, if there was such a thing as a pancreatic transplant, I would do it in a heartbeat. 100%. But I can't. And so it is not helpful to myself and my own personal mental health. And it is sure as hell not helpful to Kat for me to like be the lead of the pity party for her. I refuse. I will not do that. And I had told my mom, I was like, I'm just tired. I was like, I'm just tired on so many levels. Tired. And I forget exactly how she said it, but it's like, basically because you're taking the brunt of it for her. Because I said, she's not. She's so happy and she runs into school and she's showing her teachers her Dexcom and she's just her. She's just the happiest, wants to just live life to the fullest kind of a kid. And she's like, because you're taking that on for her. I'm like, that is so true. It's so true. And it's what we do as parents and caretakers, right? But there's two ways you get to look at things in your life. It's like, you're either going to let something hold you back. And I tell her, I'm like, no, girl. I'm like, diabetes is actually your superpower and you're going to use it as your superpower. Because things are either going to hold you back or propel you forward. And which one do you want it to do? I would much rather diabetes in this circumstance empower myself and my child and my family to move forward. And that is why I am constantly showing her. We go on Instagram, we look at hashtags, and I show her the new Olympian that just found out she was type 1, and I show her these amazing men and women and boys and girls that are like killing it. And it's just like, so I'm in a couple like different Facebook support groups for T1D parents. And there's this one group, and it's just, the vibe in that group is so negative and doom and gloom and just awful. And this other group, it's so uplifting and empowering. And people in the group also still share, like, you know what? Diabetes fucking sucks, and I'm sick of it. But there's a difference there's just a different vibe in each of those things. And you get to say it sucks. You get to say you're not, you don't like the certain circumstance. It sucks. I hate this. But what am I going to do with it? It's like, have your pity party, go punch a punching bag, cry, get all the tears out of you as many times as you have to. And this is not a one and done process. I'll be good for a few days. And then it's like last night, I just had a meltdown. And that's okay because I get back up today and I start over. So it's all about, how are you choosing to think and feel about it going forward? And I am someone who is just super hopeful and optimistic about the future and the fact that, right now, we're just in there's like the 100-year anniversary of the discovery of insulin. So to think back 100 years ago, if someone got diabetes, a child was diabetic, they would die. So I look at insulin as like, with gratitude. I could look at insulin like, oh, this fucking sucks. I hate having to do these shots. This is awful. Well, it's like, you know what? No. Thank God for insulin because it's keeping my child not just alive, but healthy, happy, and thriving. Where 100 years ago, it was a death sentence. 40, 50 years ago, people had to boil their glass syringes in between injections. Now we have disposable injections. We have insulin pens, which is like this little teeny tiny disposable needle. And we have pumps. We have a tubeless wireless pump that sticks on her leg that is like coming in the next couple weeks. And so it's like, we could look at it like, oh, this sucks. But it's like, you know what? I am so hopeful and grateful for the medicine, the science, the technology of how far things have come. And I know that only means the future is even brighter for my child. Because the things that are coming down the road are going to be even smaller, even more streamlined. And I hold it in my heart that there's going to be a cure in her lifetime. And where things take her as she's a teenager and adult, it's endless. So that's how I choose to look at things. Because when you tell me I can't do something, you better believe I'm going to do it. I have always been that way. You cannot tell me, well, this happens. It's like, no. Um, and so it's just, you have to change how you perceive and look at things and the story that you're telling yourself. The story is like, and my personal example here is like, okay, yeah, you know what? Diabetes sucks. And I wish my kid never had it. I wish no kid ever got this. But they do. And she did. So what can I do to be a leader and a boss ass bitch to pull us through this? And the way that I get through things, guys, is I take back my power. I don't stay in the pity party. I don't stay in the victim mindset. I say, okay, educate me. Education to me is one of the most empowering things you can do. It's probably why I've worked in training and development now since the early 2000s, because it's just, knowledge really is power. It is. So it's like, I'm going to educate myself on every single thing. I'm going to be on the cusp of seeing what's coming out. What are the new technologies? How can I tweak her sugars? How can I learn how to manipulate the food in such a way that she doesn't spike and drop? And I'm learning all of that right now, which is why, yes, I do feel overwhelmed because I have a lot on my plate. But knowledge, to sit here and be so scared to look at anything or read anything or just accept whatever the doctor tells me to do. I don't accept shit from anybody. Right? Like, I'm not one of those people who they say, okay, here you go, just do X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, well, wait a second. You forgot about A, B, and C, and how come this part isn't? Like, I will harass the crap out of her endo's office. I don't give a shit. Because I'm going to advocate for my child, because who else is going to do it? Who else is going to do it for her? Right? And so that's how I choose to handle hard news. That is how I choose to move through hard things. And I also want you to take comfort in that whatever you're going through right now, yes, it feels overwhelming. Yes, it feels like you are about to break under the pressure. It feels like you are never, ever going to be yourself again. I might be talking to myself right now. And you feel like you're never going to have fun again, or you're never going to have your life back. And that's because you're just in the thing right now. You're in the jar. And the jar is like spinning around and there's water coming at you and you're filling it up with soap and water. I don't know why I'm saying it. That's a stupid analogy. But like, you're in the jar right now. And one day, it's not going to feel overwhelming like this. One day, it's not going to be this all-consuming thing that you're all going through. And that's how I think about diabetes. And that's why Frank and I, we constantly sit down at the end of the day and we do our gratitude and we talk about what's good. Look how far we've come. So here I am yesterday crying about having to give the teacher her Dexcom receiver, which is her glucose monitor, so she can text me her numbers throughout the day. Here I am crying that I have to do that, where a couple weeks ago, I'm sending my kid to school hoping her blood sugars are stable all day. And now I have this amazing piece of technology that can track her sugar 24 hours a day without ever poking her. She gets one poke every 10 days. That is amazing. But do you see how I could look at that as like, oh my God, like she's always going to have to do this and it's so hard and she's going to have to bring this stuff to school. And it's like, yeah, she does. And I had my moment. I have to have that moment sometimes. But then it's like, you know what? We're now upset about a solution that we were praying for a few weeks ago. When we were having to hold her down like the exorcist just to get a finger prick and hear her scream and kick and cry and like a rage from her I had never seen before, because why would I? She's 4. She's had a perfect life. She's had nothing. Like, the worst pain she's probably ever felt was when I brush her hair and it's knotted up. I mean, like seriously, right? When we went from that to she's running to school, so happy, so excited, even showing her teacher her Dexcom and being proud of herself. That's what we celebrate. That's what we choose to focus on, because I can't change the diagnosis. I can't change the circumstance. I can change how we show up. I can change the way I speak to her, the way I speak about it with her. I can change, you know, fighting and advocating to get the technologies that are going to make this easier for her. I can do all of that. Right? And it's also like the other night, so the glucose monitor, the CGM that's now on her body, right? This thing is constantly watching 24 hours a day. It's checking your glucose, your sugar. And I was warned in some of the forums and Facebook groups that when you get this, you're going to feel overwhelmed because you're going to start seeing numbers that you weren't seeing before because you weren't checking it at those times. And that was so true. So for example, the first night that she had it, she had a low. And I had never seen her have a low except when we were in the hospital. And that was scary. I had to wake her up, had to give her some juice and do all the things. And it happened again last night. She started dropping a little bit. So she actually had woken up on her own to use the bathroom. And so I had to give her a little bit of juice to bring her back up so I could feel comfortable with her going to sleep. Same thing going to school yesterday. Then she has a spike where she goes like way over 300. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And so it's like seeing those numbers, because we really haven't seen drastic spikes and lows so far. Thank God, knock on wood. That was kind of jarring and shocking and scary all at the same time. And so I could look at that and say, oh my God, this is so scary. What is happening? Why is this? But it's like, you know what? This is data. This is information, because now we have a tool. We have a tool for her that is giving us this data so that we can start to figure out, okay, you know what, yesterday, you know why she spiked? She spiked because she had that banana with breakfast. And we know now that when you have the banana for her body, it spikes her sugar faster. Because everybody's different, right? And so that's how I'm going to look at it. It's like, this is data for us to now be able to make better decisions so that down the road, when we really get a grasp on this, like fully, it doesn't feel overwhelming. We just know, okay, you're about to do this. Let's save the banana for later. Or if you want to have the banana, I'm going to have to raise your insulin just a little bit more. Or you know what, for bed, let's make sure you have this peanut butter snack or whatever so that you don't go too low overnight. It is data. It is information. That's it. So instead of getting paralyzed and scared by seeing the certain numbers, it's like, okay, this is actually helping us to make better informed decisions about her diabetes and her insulin and her treatment plan. And as time goes on, I mean, it's just going to be bing, bing. It's just going to be, I don't want to say it's always going to be easy, because it's not easy, but it becomes less overwhelming. It becomes less of a presence in the everyday life. It's always there, but I think I said last week, it's like it starts to goes from like the front seat passenger to like riding in the back and maybe eventually in the trunk, rattling around a little bit here and there. So whatever you have in your life, it's like, can you look at your circumstance objectively and just list out the facts? What is the data? What is the facts? Because sometimes when we do that, it shows that our reaction or the way we're thinking about something is not going to be helpful to us. Feel what you need to feel and then come up with a plan. That's how I look at things. Have your pity party, but then have an end time and clean that shit up and then have a plan. What are you going to do tomorrow? How are you going to change this? Not the circumstance. How are you going to change your reaction, how you're handling it? And just give yourself grace that if you're going through a hard time right now, whatever it may be, that it's okay to feel tired. It's okay to feel stressed. It's okay to feel the overwhelm. That's okay. If you didn't feel those things, you wouldn't be a normal human being. You would probably be a psychopath that's not capable of feeling anything. But you're not. So give yourself that grace. And as we come back to like weight loss and self-love, there's never a perfect time, guys. There's never a perfect time to say, I'm going to actually start changing my life. I'm going to change my life when things slow down. I mean, think about that. Like my example, if I'm saying that I'm drowning in 2010 and I really don't have hardcore stress going on, and I say I'm drowning in 2021 with the situation that you guys know about, it's not the circumstances, it's how you are reacting to them and how you're dealing with them. So that needs to feel empowering because that is a choice. It is a choice in how you decide that you're going to move forward. How are you going to use your circumstance to hold you back? Or how are you going to use your circumstance to empower you forward? That's up to you. Let's continue this discussion over in the free Facebook group. If you're not a member, please request to join. It's absolutely free. Just type in Irresistible You Podcast in your Facebook search bar. Go under the groups tab and you should see it there. Request to join. Fill out the questions so that we know you're not a psycho. We will get you all approved and in the group, and we're going to continue this discussion there. You can also chat with me, see more of my personal life behind the scenes over on Instagram at Irresistible Icing. And I need your support. If this podcast is helping you in any kind of way, I would love if you head over to iTunes and leave a rating and review. That is how you can support this podcast, because the more ratings, the more reviews that get put out there, it pushes Irresistible You to the top of the list. And I would love to get pushed more to the top of the list because I want other women to find our community. More women need to hear what it means to lose emotional weight, because all of this stuff is going to change your life. It's going to change your life. You know, we talk about weight is not just a vanity issue. It's the meaning that you've attached to it. That's the emotional weight. All the feelings, all the emotions, all the thoughts, all the things that you have attached to what it means to be overweight, what it means to not love your body. That's the stuff we have to work on. That's what we have to work on. So thank you so much for listening. I love you guys. I will catch you in the next one. I'll see you on social media. Until then, stay irresistible. Bye, guys.